Hey guys, Jake Steele. Thanks for being here. This is episode 2 of the Iron and Steel podcast. This particular story is about a 34 three-window coupe that was built by a guy up in Canada. This guy's name's Kevin Burton, and he's really just a super nice guy. Does not seem the type, and I don't mean that in a negative way. He just, if you were to run into him, I don't think he would strike you as your run-of-the-mill dirtbag hot rodder type of guy like the rest of us. So yeah, it was interesting. And so when I was talking to him through the process of gathering the info of writing this story, it just kind of popped into my head. He was sort of like a Clark Kent, kind of a tie and suit and tie type of guy during the day, and then secretly sort of going home and living this double life of building his dream hot rod. And the end result is a car that's just absolutely phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about this car. It really is striking. That's what prompted me in the very beginning to get a hold of him, was I found some photos of it. And it just looks like a professionally built car. It looks like he had it built at a shop, a really high-end shop, and the fit and finish is incredible. The look is incredible. It just kind of, I don't know, this car just sort of punches you in the mouth the second you see it. It's a very bitchin' car. So anyway, I got a hold of him, gathered the info, wrote this little story. He struck me as just about the nicest guy in the world and reminded me a lot of Clark Kent and Superman. And so I kind of added that spin to the story. And yeah, here it is. So ironandsteel.com if you want to check out this story firsthand. I would recommend doing that because the photos associated with the article are phenomenal. Darren Greenwood Photography took these photos, and really you should go to ironandsteel.com, look at the article Secret Hot Rodder, and if nothing else, just to see those photos. So, but for now, stick around and I'll read you the story. Thanks again for being here. The headline would read something like this: Mild-mannered accountant secretly builds shockingly well-executed hot rod. Just below, the subheading elaborates: Man steadfast in his determination to complete lofty project. To the right, a small, grainy photo of a proud man standing in the doorway of his garage, arms folded, wrench in hand. Just behind him, the silhouette of a hot rod coupe with a menacing stance, and on his face, a satisfied smirk. One he earned through years of dedication, through countless knuckle-busting nights alone in his garage. His days may be spent crunching numbers, but by night, his hands make the transition from calculator to body hammer. Is it a superpower to build a hot rod? Arguable, I guess. But after seeing the incredible level of finish on this car and speaking with its owner, I couldn't help but think of him as some sort of secret hot rod building superhero. I imagined him hastily ripping his tie off at 5:01 p.m., rushing home to jump into a pair of coveralls and take on his alter ego. Well, in this case, our real-life Clark Kent is named Kevin Burton. Kevin is an exceedingly nice guy, soft-spoken and modest. On one hand, a respected chief financial officer. On the other, a die-hard hot rodder. He's a smart and personable guy who gets things done. Now, Kevin had always had a sort of admiration for hot rod and custom cars, but had always seemed too busy to take one on. As is often the case, life just sort of got in the way. His first attempt to scratch this mechanical itch resulted in the creation of a custom motorcycle. Once completed, Kevin was left with a mixture of satisfaction and yearning. Having successfully completed his two-wheeled endeavor, he knew just what had to come next. He was going to build the hot rod he had always wanted. In his mind, there was only one suitable candidate for his dream car, a 1934 Ford three-window coupe. It was 2009, and the hunt was on. Now, this part of the story is a cautionary tale of sorts. It begins with the E word. Yes, eBay. We've all heard the stories, maybe even experienced them ourselves. You know how this goes. an excited purchase made solely off of photos, anticipation, and a majorly deflated mood once the car arrives. This was the case here. In short, the car was not exactly as advertised. It had come with some work done and it was already chopped, but it needed to be completed. Unfortunately, what looked okay in the photos was in reality a cobbled together mess. As Kevin puts it was a total disaster. There's no other way to put it. I was just sick. Situations like this are where the men get separated from the boys. A lot of guys may have thrown in the towel, cut their losses, moved on. As he weighed the options, Kevin focused on turning his disappointment into motivation. Ultimately, the decision was made to push forward. So, with that, he rolled up his sleeves, pushed his billowing cape to the side, and got down to it. It wouldn't be a short adventure. There were simply no shortcuts available. It was all just work. Now, there were plenty of things along the way that Kevin had never done before, but instead of giving up, he learned as he went. Some things more difficult than others, but through it all, he never thought of quitting. He says, I just kept going. One piece at a time, one thing at a time. I didn't get in a hurry. Just about every night and every weekend I dedicated to working on something. Now, that sounds a lot like an article I wrote called 2 Hours a Night, by the way, which is on ironandsteel.com and worth a read. It would be 7 years of dedication and hard work to get to the final product you see in front of you. Now, sidebar, I'm just reading this straight off my website, so of course, in order to do the seeing part, you'll have to go there. Of course, Kevin wasn't completely alone in his journey. There were certain things along the way that he did farm out. In the end, Kevin estimates 80% of the original metal ultimately had to be replaced, which is absolutely insane. Some of the more critical portions of that process were trusted to Steve's Auto Restoration in Portland, Oregon, before the final body and paint work could be performed by Jody Starner and the crew at Sonic Body and Paint in Dunmore, Alberta. Body modifications were plentiful. There really were so many custom touches on this car that it would be difficult to name them all. The most obvious, of course, is the heavy chop and channel to get that perfect angry look. Additionally, a filled roof, smooth firewall, and 100 other little subtleties equate to one of the most gorgeous and well thought out 34 coupes around. The chassis was thoroughly worked over and boxed before the big bored and stroked to 284 cubic inches, by the way. 8BA and C4 were placed between its rails. Further stance enhancements were handled via a 4-inch dropped axle, 550s up front, 650s in the rear. Now, the only thing left was to complement the custom mix maroon paint with a proper interior. Cascade Interiors were tasked with installing distressed brown leather over the hand-formed bench seat and door panels for the perfect combination of form and function. The end result? A car that's absolutely out of this world in terms of its fit and finish, overall presence, and cohesiveness. It really is just a stunning car no matter what angle you choose to view it from. Since completion, Kevin's custom hot rod coupe has been pulling double duty, both as a fun weekend cruiser and show car. In the process, dragging home a few trunkloads of trophies along the way. Not bad for a guy's first hot rod, huh? Super, some might say. Well, there you have it, the secret hot rodder. Kind of a quickie, I guess. Really, the story of this car is told so much better through the photos. I really encourage you to go to the website and look at them. They're incredible. Darren Greenwood Photography is who took these photos. They're done sort of studio style, I guess, kind of reminiscent of like the Rodder's Journal, that type of thing, but they really are beautiful, beautiful photos. Darren Greenwood is who took them. So again, I would really encourage you to go to ironandsteel.com. The Secret Hot Rodder is the name of that article. Just scroll through it. If nothing else, just look at the photos. They're incredible. So, side note too, just because that was such a quick story, I remembered as I sat down to record the audio portion of this that this was like 2.5 years ago when we did the outline for this story. And so what happened was I had found pictures of this car online. I tracked down the owner, Kevin, and got a hold of him. And eventually he gave me his phone number, and we chatted back and forth. And so there was a week or so where I had made, I guess, several phone calls to him. He's up in Canada. And so we get the story all done and all this stuff. And about a month later, my phone bill comes, and it's like 500, and I mean, it's just astronomical, $500 or something, maybe more. I don't remember, but it was a lot. So I remember just being like irate. I called AT&T, my provider, and pitched a fit. And basically I thought that they had made a mistake because I didn't recognize the numbers that they were saying that I had called. And he's in a weird area called like China Hat or something weird. It was just the way it appeared on the bill. It looked weird. It was weird. I had no recollection of calling some obscure place out of the country. So anyway, apparently I didn't have international calling set up on my plan, which, whatever. So I get this bill. It's crazy. I call AT&T, pitch an absolute fit. And basically after a couple of hours of dealing with this thing and just being adamant that I never made those phone calls, they somewhat reluctantly, begrudgingly reversed the charges, just took them off my bill. I've been with them for 15 years or whatever, and they're like, hey, whatever, we're just going to take care of it. And so they got rid of the extra charges, and I was happy. So anyway, later that night, after a full day of dealing with that with AT&T, I remember being in bed and being like basically asleep, and it just popped into my head. Those were the phone calls that I had made to Kevin about this car. So I had, in fact, made all these phone calls to some small town up in nowhere, Canada. So anyway, sorry AT&T about that, but yeah, thanks for taking care of it. Anyway, thanks again for listening. ironandsteel.com is the website. Again, go check this story out. It's called The Secret Hot Rodder. Kevin Burton, Darren Greenwood photography. It's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon.